Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign motherland.
Let's go like fountains of treasure in triumphal banner raised, standing stronger in harmony, building our land together. Dreams of our founding fathers, we are striving to attain. Our dreams and values that we share, through all ages be sustained. Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, no like your accuracy we cherish. We uphold your integrity.
Once again, I welcome everyone to this webinar organized by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, Sustainable Business and ESG Faculty. Without too much of our time, I'll hand over the discussion to the faculty chair in person of Madam Tolu Adepoju, who will be giving the welcome and opening address. Thank you, ma. You have the floor.
Good morning. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, distinguished speakers, esteemed members of the Institute, and participants joining us from across Nigeria and beyond. I also warmly acknowledge the presence of our Deputy Registrar, Dr. Ejoma Anaso, and the Deputy Director, Dr. Adesola Okunola, and of course, the moderator for this webinar. I trust everybody is keeping well. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar titled Empowering Sustainable Growth, ESG Reporting and Green Finance for Nigerian Businesses. On behalf of the ICAN Sustainable Business and ESG faculty, I'm delighted to welcome you to this important and timely conversation. Until recently, sustainability was often viewed mainly as a compliance obligation or corporate social responsibility initiative, something that organizations pursued to enhance their image. Today, that view has significantly changed. Across the world, investors, lenders, regulators, customers, and employees are all asking very strategic questions. Can your business create sustainable value in a rapidly changing world? Increasingly, the answer determines who attracts capital, who wins businesses, and who remains competitive. Let me illustrate this with a very simple business example. Consider two similar businesses that are seeking finance from a bank or a PE firm. One presents strong financials and a solid business plan. The other does the same, but goes beyond and also demonstrates how it manages climate risk, workforce matters, governance, environmental impact, and energy efficiency. Increasingly, lenders and investors are more confident in the second business because it has gone over and beyond, and it's demonstrating resilience, foresight, and stronger long-term value creation. Sustainability reporting is therefore no longer simply about producing another report. It's about providing decision-useful information on an organization's sustainability-related risk, the opportunities, the impacts, and performance in a way that builds trust, attracts investment, and strengthens resilience. In the same way, green finance is no longer a niche funding source. It's becoming a strategic tool for businesses that are seeking to innovate, grow, and remain competitive in a rapidly evolving economy. In Nigeria, this conversation is very timely. We face climate risk, energy transition challenges, infrastructure gaps, and rising stakeholder expectations. At the same time, there are significant opportunities in renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, green buildings, climate smart infrastructure, and inclusive finance. Businesses that seize these opportunities will contribute to national development while strengthening their own competitiveness. As accountants, finance professionals, and business leaders, we occupy a very unique position as custodians of trust. We measure performance, we allocate capital, we provide assurance, and influence strategic decisions. Stakeholders are therefore increasingly relying on us to ensure that sustainability disclosures include ESG metrics that are relevant, are credible, are transparent, and are decision useful as financial information. This makes our work and the work of the ICAN Sustainable Business ESG faculty especially important. Our mission is to equip our members with knowledge, skills, and leadership that's required to help us navigate our changing landscape and support high-quality sustainability and ESG reporting while unlocking sustainable finance opportunities that can drive our economy. So today's webinar brings together experts who will help us to understand why sustainability reporting, ESG information, and green finance matters, and how Nigerian businesses can apply them effectively. I encourage everyone to listen actively, ask questions, consider how today's insights can be translated into practical action within your organizations. As Peter Drucker wisely observed, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Through credible sustainability reporting, responsible financing, and informed leadership, we can help shape a future in which Nigerian businesses are not only profitable, but they are also resilient, they are trusted, and they are globally competitive. In summary, sustainability reporting and green finance are no longer optional considerations. They are essential tools for building resilient, trusted, and competitive businesses. And we as professionals, we have a responsibility to help organizations to turn sustainability from aspiration into action using credible information, sound governance, and responsible finance to be able to create long-term value for businesses. So on behalf of the ICAN Sustainable Business and ESG faculty, I thank all our distinguished speakers for sharing their expertise with us and our organizers for helping to put this important event together. And of course, you participants for creating time to be here today to listen and to engage. I wish us all an engaging, insightful, and impactful webinar. Thank you very much. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. We really appreciate you. And then with that welcome address and opening address, I believe we are all well set to enjoy, not only enjoy, but to learn from the from our well-informed facilitators that are going to be taking on in the two topics under the theme of this webinar, which is empowering sustainable growth, ESG reporting, and green finance for Nigerian business. So the first topic is sustainability reporting in a new era, preparing Nigerian business for global disclosure standards. And to take this topic is Yewanti Adeyi, a sustainability advisor, ESG distribution and process advisor at KPMG. And I will quickly go through her bio. Yewanti possesses over 11 years cumulative experience researching and working on transformational projects with various organizations at board and top management level, co-creating Nigerian and contributing to the desired sustainability and governance change. This includes corporate sustainability strategy and framework development, sustainability ESG reporting and assurance, impact assessment, waste management advisory, carbon emission advisory, corporate governance capability building, etc. There are facilitated several awareness and capacity building workshops for board directors and senior management of main organizations. UNDP shares have an experience and various and speaking sessions, including the United Nations Foundation's Social Good Program, the Impact Investors Foundation, Impact. The Impact Investment Foundation, Impact Transparency Workshop, and the 3I Africa Summit. He had a master's degree in the full member of the Sustainability Professional Institute
Veronica, you have an echo.
Veronica.
Veronica.
Sustainability of UK. She has done various related certifications, including ISO 14001 and ISO 60001 lead implementer. Thank you, welcome. Yewanti Adeyi as the first speaker of this webinar. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Veronica, and good morning, everyone. Can you please confirm you can hear me well? Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much, and welcome to the session today. Thank you so much, Veronica, for the introduction, and thank you very much, Madam Chair, for that welcome introduction. So I'll be discussing sustainability reporting in the new era and how it prepares Nigerian businesses for global disclosure standards. You would all agree with me that sustainability reporting in the last 10 years is no longer the same. Before, when you talk about sustainability reporting, the next question is, especially in this our geography, what is sustainability? What's sustainability reporting? What is it about? But in the past few years, there has been a lot of enlightenment. There's been a lot of awareness, out there, and sustainability has been a topic of interest, to organizations and various stakeholders. Prior to now, when the likes of the oil and gas and the manufacturing, started reporting in this area. Typically in that time, it was focused on philanthropy, focused on donations, charitable gifts, how they ensure that they give back to the society, basically. And if you look at those reports, well, then, yeah, they had a bit of extensions, beyond giving back. At some point you see how much they had absorbed some of the community members into the workforce and all of those reports. Then there wasn't that structured framework, that would be used for reporting, and it's typically, based on what they're giving and what the outcome has been. Also, it's been voluntary. It's been a matter of doing the right thing. It's been a matter of everybody just trying their hands, to showcase what they are doing. And at that time, there wasn't really a regulation to check whether something is right or not. And of course, because it was voluntary, it was also inconsistent. I could choose to report an area this year, and next year, if I feel that that area is not favorable, I've chosen my direction as an organization, in where I want to give back, I can also just go ahead and report in that area again. And you are not able to measure my progress, as an organization from previous year, to the current year as well. Also, you couldn't really measure the industry performance as a whole. You couldn't compare organizations within the same sector and industry. And of course, if it is voluntary, why would I be accountable? The sense of accountability wasn't so much there at all, not to talk of assurance. If we look at the last 10 years, barely will you see organizations that obtain assurance over their sustainability reports. And when you see a few, it's probably because their parent company in another geography, has requested it or is performing that assurance across the group. And then you see this entity also obtaining assurance, and it was often treated as an afterthought, much more than what informed the decision in the course of the year. Also, disclosures were basically narrative. They were narrative and fragmented. There were a lot of use of flowery words. I decide to coin the coinage of my report in the way I want you to see it. And I can be saying the same thing in different ways, such that an interpretation you give it, if I coin it as A, is different from the interpretation that you give it if I coin it as B. And you cannot depict the true picture of what I'm trying to tell you. But if you check, have I disclosed or have I reported? I would say I have reported. But when you look at the new era now, you will see that organizations are now beginning to integrate sustainability into strategy. They are looking beyond now reports. They are looking, beyond what do I want to report? They are then looking at how it can inform their business from day one, such that it is part of their DNA. Some organizations, you will hear sustainability is in our core DNA. You will hear the CEO is the number one sustainability champion. You will hear a number of statements that ideally demonstrate to you that there is that integration and is not a separate topic on its own. Also, is becoming investor driven, in the sense that uh, stakeholders are now asking investors to be responsible as to where they are putting their money. They need to understand the impact of organizations of investment, that they are putting their money on the people around them, on the environment. Stakeholders also then want to know the impact of action or inaction, when it comes to sustainability. They want to see how it impacts the financial statement line item, and how it impacts profitability, and of course value creation at the end of the day. They also don't want the fact that as an organization we are not meeting societal or expectations. They don't want it to come back and impact um the business. And of course, they don't want to be in the news for the wrong cause. They want to be in the news for the right cause. They want to have publications about them, that speaks good about them. All of this is then beginning to shift, the drive for sustainability reporting. Also, is becoming essentially compliance in view of the ISSB standards, for instance. Quite a number of jurisdictions have adopted, and within those jurisdictions, organizations are beginning to, adopt. And once it get regulated, of course, we all then know that we need to comply. Also, it's beginning to be a corporate governance requirement. When you look at the NCCG 2018, for instance, this principle that talks about the oversight of the board on sustainability matters, it is a requirement from corporate governance perspective. It then means that for us to oversee, there's something we're overseeing in the first instance. There is an integration in the first instance. There is implementation, in the first instance. And of course, the requirement for comparability. If I'm like Madam Chairman said in our opening remarks, if I have two organizations that are doing well, they are doing comparably when it comes to financials. If one has, hedge over the other when it comes to sustainability performance, that's then, a plus, But if that comparability is not there in the first instance, I'm not able to make my decision as a business, as an investor, as a stakeholder. Also, sustainability reporting is becoming quantitative. Writers of reports are learning to put numbers, to some of this performance beyond adjectives and adverbs that we use to describe our activities. They are then beginning to put them on scale. They are beginning to attribute metrics, units of measurement to some of these performance areas, such that we can infuse that comparability in our sustainability report. They're also continually getting assurance. You will see that the number of sustainability reports that obtain assurance is increasing. Maybe not at the expected speed, but you will see that is increasing by the year. And of course, because stakeholders want to be able to make informed decision, you can see that shift. You can see in the past, say 5 to 10 years, before you see sustainability reports, that are reported almost 2 years after. So for instance, we see a sustainability report of 2024 being reported in 2026. But because of this shift, you will see that there is that gradual amendment. Yes, it may be a bit later in the year, but you see that shift. You see that organizations are being more deliberate, to ensure that they report early enough. So these are some of the movements that we have seen in this sustainability landscape. And then when you talk about the frameworks, the regulations, the standards, that guide all of this, there are quite a number of them. Some are jurisdictional, some are global, some are as a result of committing to a cause. For instance, the UNGC, the UN Global Compact, for instance, there are certain members that belong to this body, and as such, they then have obligations to report certain metrics, because they are members of that body, and it's not necessarily regulatory, but is an obligation as a result of that membership. There are various global frameworks and standards out there, and of course, if I look at the more prominent ones, if I pick the GRI, for instance, I know some of us are familiar with the GRI standards, which is the Global Reporting Initiative standards, that were developed for organizations to be able to report their impacts, on their environment, including the people, the stakeholders around them. The standard has a quite wide range of reach, and it's been the most adopted standard in the past. And when you look at the focus of the standard, it is impact focused actually. We also have had the SASB standards. While it may have originated, from America, it's been very useful for reporters, because of the sector-based focus that it has. The board, that came up with these standards were able to narrow down to specific industry and sectors, such that a bank is really able to drill down to determine what areas they should be looking at when it comes to sustainability performance and reporting, beyond just being a financial institution, beyond just being an organization at all in the first instance. And the focus of this standard has been the investors, generally the providers of capitals, whether as loan or equity, and the materiality focus has also been financial materiality, to see how the financial prospect of a business is impacted as a result of externalities when it comes to sustainability. And of course, we then had the ISSB standard that came up, as a result of the inconsistency, as a result of absence of a global baseline for sustainability reporting. When you look at some sustainability reports, you would see sometimes up to 10, 12 standards or frameworks that's been listed that the report aligns with, but the objective of the ISSB standards is to narrow down some of these standards and be able to provide something comparable. From materiality perspective, it's closer to SASB. It adopts the financial maturity approach, and the audience is also investor focused or providers of information. The essence is for provider of capital, or somebody who has an existing voting right to be able to make an informed decision, as a result of the information that is being provided. And of course, we have the ESRS by the CSRG, which is impact focused as well. And of course, financial maturity focus is a two-pronged approach, double materiality, and as you expect, the range of stakeholders that it focuses on is quite wide. We have several others. We have the UN SEC disclosure requirements, which currently is being reviewed. You have the UK, you have, quite a number of them. And then if you look at even the ISSB adoption, the range of adoption has varied across jurisdictions. There are some that are fully adopted, the way it is. Some have aligned it with local standards, to ensure that it's fit for purpose beyond the broad global standard. There are some countries that have come up with roadmap or commitments, like Nigeria, for instance. We have a roadmap. In fact, we have the updated roadmap, that has been come up with as a result of feedback from the early adopters. And some of them have adopted a climate-only approach, while some are also looking at other areas of reporting. And in some areas, it's been voluntary to say that, yes, you can adopt, but we are not going to enforce it on you as a government or a regulator. And in some other areas, like Nigeria, is mandatory, just that we've not gotten to the mandatory phase. So overall, 40 jurisdictions have adopted, have decided to adopt, or say permit the use of the standards globally. And in Africa, about 9 countries have either adopted or permitted the use, and with Nigeria being the first mover in Africa. So when we then look beyond that and we come to Nigeria, sustainability reporting is not entirely new in Nigeria. Really, there have been a lot of activities. There have been quite some regulations that reporting in line with these regulations have kind of indirectly supported, directly or indirectly supported, to provide sustainability reporting. And you will see that the financial sector appears to be at the forefront of holistic sustainability reporting. And the reason being that, it's an highly regulated sector even before the emergence of the ISSB. And they've had the Nigerian Sustainable Banking Principles, which was issued by the CBN in 2012. And a lot of these banks have been reporting in line with these standards since then. Also in 2017, the NGX launched its first climate change bond. In 2018, we had the SEC rule on the green bond issuances. The NGX also issued the sustainability disclosure guidelines, for the listed companies. And then we had the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance that same year as well. In 2020, we have the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan approved in 2020. We also had the Nigerian Climate Change Act, in 2021. And all of these standards, while the level of enforcement may have varied from one standard to another, But if you look critically at sustainability reports, you will see, instances where they reference some of these standards to say that in putting these reports together, they bore in mind, regulation A, framework B, policy C, in helping to shape the disclosures that they have provided. If you look at the publication that the FRC made earlier this year on the adopters of the standards, of the ISSB standards, we try to analyze them by sector, and you'll see that the banking sector, because a lot of them have had that structure, reasonably in place before now, you will see that the banking sector has the most reports out there in line with the ISSB standards, followed by the insurance and pensions, the DFI sovereign, or fintech, and others. You see that 71% of them are financial services firms, and almost all of them are a large public interest entity if we go by the definition of public interest entities by the FRC. And of these public interest entities, 46%, of public of the reporters, of the adopters, are actually publicly listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So what is driving all of this? What are the benefits? What are the implications of inactions? Looking at this broadly and saying, why does sustainability reporting matter to Nigerian businesses? I've had quite some conversations with some stakeholders in the DFIs, and you get to hear that they have funds, they have targets of the funds that they have to disburse, to organizations. However, they've in looking at the mix of financial performance and sustainability integrations, they've not seen a lot of organizations, that they can really invest in, either as in terms of equity or to provide cheaper loans for them. And you'll be wondering that it's still in the same Nigeria that you see organizations say that funds are not available for them to scale their business. So it just demonstrates to us that these providers are looking beyond financial performance. Yes, when you talk about sustainable finance, we always say that is finance form first before it is sustainable, but at the same time, they are looking at those other areas beyond financial. They're looking at environmental factors, they're looking at social factors, they're looking at governance. In fact, governance is becoming a big deal now, because irrespective of your environmental and social performance, if the right governance is not there, it's just a matter of time. It's a ticking bomb. DFIs are now very big on governance, and beyond DFIs as well, other providers of funds, they are looking at these areas. I've done a number of projects where when you ask the process owners, or what's pushing this request, what is prompting this request that you've asked, you hear them say, oh, my investor is asking for it. My board members who are representatives of investors, are asking for it. Also, beyond capital, we have stakeholder pressures as well. Beyond, we have communities that are asking, that are demanding responsibility, that are demanding environmental sustainability, that are demanding social responsibility. They are demanding community health and safety. They don't want to be exposed to hazards because of the presence of our organizations. There are even watchdogs out there as well, that are looking at sustainability performance and disclosures, of organizations. So do we then want to put our own narrative the way it is ahead of watchdogs coming for us? Do we want to paint the exact situation, that really is, before somebody makes some inferences or establishes some perceptions on our behalf. So these broad stakeholders, including customers, and employees, communities, they are also putting pressure on businesses to disclose. Also, evolving risk. So disclosures is the end game, right? But beyond you get to before you get to disclosures, it then means that you have put some things in place first, before you can then disclose performance. What are you putting in place, and why are you putting those things in place? They are evolving environmental and social risk, that are coming up. When you look at the WEF annual reports, you will see that sustainability related risks continue to come up the ladder year in, year out, as risks to look out for in the next 2 years, in the next 10 years. So it then means that we need to start managing this risk before we can even then demonstrate to stakeholders in our reports that we are really in control of this risk, and we are seizing the opportunities, that are daring. And of course, regulatory requirements as well. If we don't want to look at all of these factors when it comes to regulatory, we definitely want to look at it. We don't want to be on the erring side of the regulator or the government. We don't want to be seen out there as the organization that is not performing. There are regulators that actually do posts, that publish list of non-conforming organizations, as a result of the frameworks that has been put in place. I'm definitely sure that our organizations don't want to be, on that list. It then puts that pressure on us, to look into our reporting as well, and then to ensure that our report is in the good light. It then also means that we are taking actions. So in all of this, what is going to be the advantage, for adopting sustainability reporting generally, irrespective of the framework? Of course, because the before you put a report out there, it means that some decision makers within the organization have looked at it and they are comfortable with it. It then means that there's that governance that is supposed to be infused, into what we do as organizations before we get to reporting at all. It then means that if organization A has reported, let me use fatality, one case of fatality in a year, it means that the board directors, the executive management are going to ensure that it doesn't repeat itself again, because for any standard organization, fatality is meant to be zero. That's the target. So that governance is in place, that control is in place, that supervision is then in place, to ensure that we have a good result that we are able to report. Also, better decision making, whether the report is public or internal. When we have a report that shows a true picture of our performance, we're able to make better decisions. So for instance, if we have, a report that demonstrates increasing emissions as a result of our business, it then helps us to determine how do we reduce the greenhouse gases that we release into the air. What are the processes, what are the controls that we need to put in place? Does it mean that we need to change our machines, to less emitting ones, our generators? Does it mean we want to look at renewable energy? Does it mean we want to look at a more efficient means of operating such that we are able to produce more, as we were a manufacturer, for instance, with less energy, which then translates into less emissions? All of these considerations are, what we put in place. Another instance, if, for instance, we have reports of if we have a report on corrupt practices within the organization, what it then means is that we need to step back, look at the loopholes as an organization, determine how we are going to block those loopholes, and how we are going to measure that the controls we have put in place is continuously effective, that is where better decision comes in. Also, greater stakeholder trust. By the time we are putting our performance out there, before the request from stakeholders, we are then able to elicit the trust of the stakeholder. And also, so far the report is of good quality, meaning that it is accurate, it is complete, it is valid, it is timely. When those attributes of a good quality report, sustainability reports, is embedded, we are then able to get comfort, of the stakeholders, and improve resilience as well. Beyond showcasing, beyond compliance, beyond one regulator trying to check what we do, it helps us to improve resilience. If you look at the structure of the ISSB standards, for instance, it is risk focused. It looks at this sustainability related risk and opportunities that is likely to impact the financial prospects of the business. So it then means that as we are identifying those risks, we are prioritizing them, we are caging them, such that we become a resilient business. And we are also putting structures in place, mitigatory structures in place, adaptive structures in place, such that when this risk materializes, we are able to demonstrate resilience. So, for instance, an organization that is close to a large water body, for instance, that has assessed the likely impact of flooding, or um, high currents, when they happen. This organization can then consider building seawalls, for instance, to ensure that they're able to manage those events when they happen. Some of these events are not frequent and some of them are extreme weather events. But because we've been able to assess our risk, because we've been able to put mitigants in place, adaptive structures in place, it helps us to demonstrate resilience. And, that's even a huge benefit beyond reports. And by the time we are even able to then report that resilience, to stakeholders, it gives us that trust. If I take COVID as an example, yeah, while COVID may not be a direct sustainability related risk, when COVID happened, organizations that have prepared for remote working before then were able to transition easily, and they were able to continue their businesses. They were able to continue to support their customers, compared to organizations that didn't have such structures in place. Cybersecurity became an issue. If cybersecurity has not been kept tight, has not been well managed pre-COVID, it then means that such organizations are susceptible to uh, exposure as a result of cyber-related issues. So these are advantages of preparing to report early, or to preparing to report at all. And I think the risk of inaction is implied, is clear. When we don't then take action, the pressure then comes on us. If I also use the ISSB standards adoption as an example again, by 2028, when it becomes mandatory for public interest entities, organizations that have not been looking into it will be highly pressured, and when we are under pressure, it is likely that we may not get things right. It is likely that at that point we are probably reporting commitments and not necessarily performance, because that is when we are just trying to gather things together. Of course, reputation now risk as well. Not reporting performance leaves the stakeholders to their perception. They can think, as wide as they can, when it comes to sustainability performance, because we have not provided the right information in the first instance. Of course, there's going to be data gaps, because even organizations that have been reporting for decades, they still struggle with data, if they've not put the right structures in place. And of course, market exclusions. Um, transition risk is a big one, as the world is moving towards a sustainable one, moving towards a climate friendly one. There's that probability that as organizations that are not taking action, we may get excluded, or as an organization that does not demonstrate action. There is taking action and then there is demonstrating action. So before we move to the next one, which is on building readiness for this new era, just to check that you've been following, I would like to ask a question, based on the presentation so far. So earlier I had mentioned that a particular sector appears to be leading when it comes to adopting the ISSB standard. When you look at the number of people, the number of organizations that have reported or have adopted so far, can you please tell me this sector? You can please drop your comment in the chat box and I would read them out. Which sector has reported most or has adopted the ISSB standard most? Okay, Olajumoke says the banking sector. Okay, financial sector, financial institutions, banking and financial. Okay, thank you very much for following this. Okay, I can see that we are following. Yes, the financial services firms have actually been adopting more, and even within the financial services firm, the banks have actually been doing the more reporting. Okay, thank you so much for that. So I'll then move on to discuss how we build readiness for the new era. So we have spoken about the trends, we have spoken about what good looks like, what the benefits are, when we adopt sustainability reporting. So how do we build readiness? And I've built my response around 4 pillars. I've built it around strategy, governance, and accountability, also around data and systems, capacity building for sustainability reporting, and assurance and readiness. So when you talk about strategy, governance, and accountability, if you recall, I had mentioned that sustainability reports is just the outcome that you see as a whole. A lot of efforts ideally should have gone into sustainability integration within the business, before we get to reporting. And strategy is one way, that can help us to achieve that. A lot of organizations, their corporate strategy, they have these retreats, perhaps in Dubai, 5 to 10 days where they are killing the strategy, and it comes out really great, ready for the year. But the question then becomes, how have we embedded sustainability considerations in this strategy? Yes, the financial or the economic pillar has been an area that organizations have gotten right over the years. But when you consider environmental factors, when you consider social factors, when you consider the governance around all of this, putting this together, the governance that serves as a backbone for integration, how have you considered sustainability in this? For those that have sustainability strategy as a separate frame, how has this sustainability strategy considered the corporate direction of the business? And of course, ultimately, the end game is that you have that holistic corporate strategy, that actually has sustainability consideration, such that you are not, having things happening in silos. Is important that it is there. It is important that as we have our financial KPIs, we also have KPIs for other sustainability factors. It is important that as we have metrics for measuring our performance. So for instance, if I look at the banking sector, one of the a major KPI in the banking sector is non-performing loans, NPL. So when you look at your non-performing loans as well, how have you even considered how sustainability performance of these organizations that you have given loan to, how has it impacted their non-performance, and how do you want to prevent it going forward? How do you want to support the ones that are already in that non-performance situation? A lot of times for high ticket loans, you would see banks conduct what we refer to as A&S due diligence. But the question then becomes that how rigorous is this due diligence? How are we making sure that it is not a tick in the box exercise where we need to conduct site visits, to ensure that the reports we are getting is actually a fair representation of the actual situation? How are we ensuring that beyond disbursement, after disbursement, how do we continue to follow up on the performance of such organizations, to ensure that this sustainability risk, that we have developed plans in place, they typically develop E&S risk management plan to manage the risks that have been identified. How do we ensure that such organizations implement those plans beyond the reports they give to us? How do we obtain that comfort from such organizations? Building all of those into our strategy, is really important. Identifying the KPIs, the metrics, and setting the right targets. And a strategy like your corporate strategy is a living document. It's something that you need to continue to assess over time to be sure that it remains fit for purpose. And then the governance as well. What controls do you have in place? What level of oversight does the board have over sustainability disclosures and even integration, from the start of the year? What oversight do they have over the plan that has been developed? What oversight do they have over budgeting for sustainability related matters? Do you have the adequate resources, both human, financial, and otherwise? Do you have those resources adequately set aside, for sustainability, or is it an afterthought? When you come back down to the executive, who is ultimately responsible for sustainability execution within the organization? When you come to the executive management committee, to what extent do they oversee sustainability? To what extent do they understand their individual roles as different members of the executive committee when it comes to sustainability? How does the CFO understand his role, and how does he support the CSO? Does the CFO understand the extent to which this risk impacts his financial statement line, his or her financial statement line item? All of these are critical areas. And then when you look at the general business teams as well, to what extent um, are they committed to this cause? How often or how familiar are they with the sustainability frameworks and policies, that guides their day-to-day activities? There are SOPs that have sustainability considerations infused that they are meant to have on their desk, either as a hard copy or a soft copy, and look through from time to time to ensure that it guides their daily operations. How often do they refer to it, and how often do they report in line with these operations that have been laid down? It is very important that all of those are clear. It is important that there is strategic vision, and mission. The vision and mission does not necessarily have to have the word sustainability verbatim, but when I read it as a new employee, do I does it demonstrate to me that sustainability is at the heart of this organization? All of those factors, they then contribute to meaningful reporting at the end of the day. Also, when I look at data and systems, so everybody understand their roles now, the KPIs have been set, the targets have been set, and then we implement. What systems are in place to ensure that the right data is captured over time that ultimately results in the reporting that we put out there? What data and system is there to ensure the integrity of that information that ultimately gets to the stakeholders. We had said that the essence is for stakeholders to make informed decisions. But if the data and systems are not robust enough, if they are not well controlled, if the control that's been put in place is not effective, it then becomes difficult, to be able to ensure the integrity of the report. And that is why you will see that one of the documents that has been said to be submitted to the in demonstrating readiness for sustainability reporting is internal control over sustainability reporting. The same way you have internal control over financial reporting. How effective are these controls? Is there clear data ownership? Sometimes a lot of times sustainability information sits across organizations, across functions within the organization, across data and process owners. Is there clear ownership? Does Mr. A know that he has to provide, say, monthly performance information on data B? Appropriate reporting boundaries. Sometimes you see a sustainability report at the beginning, it's group wide across entities, and then at some point you notice that it's for a particular entity. At some point you notice that it's for particular related parties. Are those boundaries there? There are instances where we share assets, we share some things, with some other organizations. It then means that the boundaries have to be clear, within our data systems to ensure that we put together the right information that is said, information that is said to be for company A is not in reality for company B and company C, or ABC. And that is for ABC is not in reality for only company A. Documenting methodologies as well is very important for us to demonstrate that we know how we got to what we are reporting. There are instances where we just report figures, and the reader of the report is wondering, okay, how did they come about these things? But when you mention relevant methodologies and approaches that you have used, if I take emissions, for instance, if I mention that I've used the GHG protocol, and provide a summary of how I have leveraged it, it gives that reader comfort that, okay, I didn't just come up with these figures. And transparent assumptions, like we have in financial reporting, we are bound to report assumptions. How do we report it transparently such that the readers have those assumptions at the back of their mind, when they are reading that report? It is very important if it's going to influence the way they interpret those reports. If, for instance, I want to say that I want to report my emissions, and I have gotten my data for scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emissions, and for my scope 3, there are some of my upstream or downstream, activities that I've not been able to get the information for them, and then I have to put some assumptions in place. I then need to disclose that. And the essence of disclosing that is that if come next year in my reporting again, I discovered that, so that assumption that I put in place was not the situation, and I need to restate. It is clear that I already made an assumption, and it was on that basis that I arrived at the information that I communicated. So it then helps me, for that soft landing for my readers to understand that, this was what was on my mind, when I came up with what I came up with in the first instance. And auditable evidence trail. Auditable evidence trail is very, very, very important. If we bear in mind that the information we are going to be disclosed is going to be audited, it then helps us to be able to put the structures in place to ensure that we get the right data. So for instance, if I come up with my group gender reports, group gender information, and I say that across my organization, we have 70 gender A and 30 gender B. But I'm not able to demonstrate the information across the entities, that came up to that 70 and 30, you know, when the auditor is going to, when the assurance provider is going to provide assurance over this, they want to see how you came up with it. They want to see the total employees. They want to see the employees by name, by gender. If I'm not able to provide that, it then becomes questionable, how I came up with my distribution in the first instance. Also, in terms of capacity building, if the capacity is not there, it is going to be very difficult to report the right way. It's going to be very difficult to report rightly. Things as little as units of measurement, for instance, if I don't have that training, if I don't understand the units of measurement in which I'm collecting my information, it directly impacts the quality of information that I put out there. If I'm collecting information in kilograms, for instance, and the person scripting the reports needs information in tones. So, there is that, and I'm not able to demonstrate to that writer of the report that I actually collected this information in kg, not in tones. And the person reports the exact same figure in tones. You can see that, there is a mismatch. There is importance that capacity is built across different entities, bespoke training, to ensure that everybody understands their role and how they contribute to sustainability and what is expected of them. All of those are very critical as well. And then okay, I think I spoke about assurance readiness as well as part of data and system. Assurance readiness, it helps you, it saves a lot of stress, it saves a lot of misstatement, restatement, because by the time you misstate, it then means you have to restate. So by the time we put structures in place to ensure that we are assurance ready, even if at that point we are not conducting assurance, or even if we are getting our assurance from the internal audit at the moment, it helps to ensure that the information we are putting out there is fair and representative. So when I then go to what good looks like, what would a good sustainability report entail? Number one is going to mean that the information I'm reporting is of relevance. It means that I have assessed my materiality, the universe of sustainability reporting out there, reporting topics out there across economic, environmental, social, and governance topics. So how do I determine what is relevant? What my stakeholders want to see? It is important that I have done that in coming up with my sustainability report. Insight from stakeholders as well, either from the point of materiality, what they want to see, or even how they perceive my performance to be, how I engage them, the minstrel I engage them, the frequency with about which I engage them, the purpose for the engagement, is important that I'm able to demonstrate this in my report. Also, the underlying strategy, that is helping me with my implementation. It has to be clear that sustainability integration is strategy driven. I'm not just reporting. I'm not just sitting back December 31st and then deciding that this year I want to report. What am I reporting in the first instance? What have I put in place to ensure that I get the relevant results to be able to report to my stakeholders? There has to be a strategy that is informing a good report at the end of the year, a strategy that has been monitored um, on a periodic basis, that management has probably sat over on a monthly basis, that the board has probably sat over on a quarterly basis. That strategy has to be there to monitor performance. Also, there is need for alignment with global reporting standards, because at the end of the day, we are not planning to be a local champion. We want our reports to be comparable. We want to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder, with global organizations when it comes to performance and reporting. Also, integration of systems and technology enablement. This is also very critical. Yes, technology is not going to replace the things that we need to do, right? But it's going to help us to make things easier. It's going to help us to report accurately so far the inputs that has been put there, are accurate, and the controls in terms of review and all of that, are tight. In that instance, technology is an enabler to ensure that our sustainability report comes out right. And of course, there are tools, that have been developed to even, help come up with that first draft after, excuse me, after such data has been provided to the tools. And of course, forward-looking statements. This particular area is something that some organizations try to avoid, because they don't want to be held accountable the next time they are reporting. But it is important that we demonstrate that commitment through forward-looking statements. What are we hoping to achieve in the coming years? So, for instance, if we have been able to put together a scope 1 and scope 2 emissions report this year, and then this year we've not been able to report our scope 3 emissions. Are we looking to achieve it in the next 2-3 years? If our emission result is high, for instance, are we looking to decarbonize over the long term? At what time? What our interim target? Is important that those statements are there to hold ourselves accountable and demonstrate accountability, and of course, evidence and result-based assurance. This is a direction that sustainability reporting is going now. It's not just about what you disclose, it's about what do you have to show for it, where are the evidences. And you will notice that a number of DFIs are moving towards result-based financing now. They break the um, ambition into 6 chunks, 3 chunks, for instance, and then they provide some sum to you. They disburse some funds to you to say that on the completion of phase A, we release the funding for phase B. Or sometimes they even say, go and use your money on the completion of phase A, we release the money in the fund to you. That is where sustainability reporting is going. And so overall, a sustainability report is transparent, it inspires actions, and it commits to a sustainable future. So I think I will make this last area an interactive one. What do you then think are the common errors or gaps that you have seen that organizations have made in sustainability reports? What are the common errors and gaps that you have seen in some sustainability reports that you have reviewed? Can you still hear me? What are the common errors and gaps that you have come across in sustainability reporting or in sustainability reports? Madam Veronica, can you please confirm you can hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, let me say something.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, I think it would be the greenwashing, whereby companies package themselves like they are so perfect on the sustainability side. But when you look into the books itself and their activities, the breakdown of activities, you realize that they are not really sustainability compliant. So it's the greenwashing that I want to comment on how they just package everything to look perfect.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Greenwashing. Yeah, greenwashing is actually an area of concern. Yes, please.
Okay, Felicia has her hand raised. I don't know if she wants to respond to your question.
Please go ahead.
Felicia, you can respond.
Okay, while we expect a response, I can see a response here: poor data quality and inaccurate metrics. Absolutely. See pictures of events relating to sustainability activities, but there are no figures in the book speaking to it. Thank you very much. Okay, some of the reports are not properly coordinated to reveal the intentions of the reporting organization. Thank you. Lack of consistency year on year. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, these are actually very valid errors, that have been in sustainability reports. I can see inconsistent frameworks as well. Please go to the next slide. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, inconsistent framework can be one really, especially when organizations don't have the right guidance as to what they should be reporting around, when there isn't so much of a purpose that is demanding the reporting from them. So yes, I mentioned unplanned activities and initiatives for the year, and that's when strategy comes in. Somebody just comes up with something. Oh, why don't we just plant trees? Somewhere in the middle of the year, and then we plant trees. Somebody says, oh, why don't we just start closing at 4? You know, and then we start closing at 4 without sitting to consider the cost and benefits of some of these initiatives and what we are looking to achieve and how we are going to measure performance. Sometimes the initiatives are good, but when it comes to reporting performance, they can't report performance. We can't report performance because it was not done in a structured, in a deliberate way. You see broad statement as well. You can see sometimes you see we're impacting our environment negatively, and we're impacting our environment positively, and the reader is wondering what this means in the real context. You know, you see commitments, that are not actionable. We will continue to, you see some of those statements, and then you are wondering, okay, what exactly do you want to continue to do, by this statement? Misalignment with sustainability reporting frameworks, absolutely. There are instances where organizations have different reporting demands and they want to bring all in one sustainability report. If they don't have the right capacity,
You are muted.
oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I tried to, oh, thank you. I tried to summarize the common errors, and gaps by organization. And I mentioned that these have been rightly captured within the comments. There are instances where organizations come up with activities in the course of the year, and it just springs up. The purpose is not clear, the how they want to measure performance is not clear, the target is not clear. Some of those intentions are good. So, for instance, I decide that I want to plant trees. Is planting tree good? Yes, but um to what purpose do I want to plant the trees? If I'm looking to sink carbons, with the trees, I'm then considering, okay, in which area am I planting the tree? What species of tree am I planting? For how long am I planting? What structures am I putting in place to ensure that the trees remain permanent and that they are not just felled by some random people? You are thinking of all of those concepts, in coming up with this initiative. Broad statements. Madam Felicia, you want to say something? Hello, Madam Felicia. Okay, I think I'll continue while I try to unmute my mic. While she tries to unmute her mic. So broad statements, very generic statements, can be found in sustainability reports as well. Unactionable commitments, we will continue to, continue to do what exactly. It may not be exactly clear. And misalignment with sustainability reporting frameworks. So, what's the role of institutions like ICAN, in ensuring that organizations are not lost in this new era of reporting? They need to continue to create incentives for adoption of reporting standards. So, for instance, having this session as a free webinar, is a good one. Building capacity and technical competence across relevant stakeholders as it relates to their role. Providing enabling infrastructure, is very important for institutions like ICANN to put in place. So, when we look at this era as it continues, what's the outlook like? What's next in the continued evolution? We are in the era of IFRS for now, and based on what the FRC has said, there's full mandatory adoption happening by 2028 and 2030, depending on the class of organization. Also, expansion in sustainability topical disclosures are beginning to happen. There will also be greater need and demand for assurance and integration into financial reporting. And AI will then, continue to expand its use. AI has come to stay. It then continue to expand the use depending on how we leverage AI and ensure that the human in the loop continues to be leveraged, to ensure a good quality report. And overall, I would say that the future of sustainability reporting will be broader. It will continue to be broader. It will be more integrated. It will gain interest for assurance over time, and it will increasingly get technology enabled. So, in the interest of time, I will stop here and try to answer a few questions that may come up. So, Mrs. Veronica, back to you, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Participants are gained so much from your wealth of knowledge. The question and answer would like to take it as a second contact association. To help us to maximize time. So, participants drop your questions in the Q&A box. And for those joining on YouTube,
You are echoing more.
Apologies. Apologies about that. So for the attendance, for those on YouTube, a link will be dropped where you can complete the attendance form. But those on Zoom, your attendance is automatically captured. So for now, we just briefly go on a 5 minute break so that we could just take a couple of easy stretch our hands and legs, and then we'll be back for the second topic, which the second topic, which on sustainable finance and green investment, unlocking new growth opportunities. So we'll be focusing on investment opportunities in the sustainability field. So kindly just take a break, just a few minutes break, and then we'll be back to take that paper, and then we'll go into the question and answer section. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam Yewande. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is the person of Dr. Yvonne Afolabi. She's the principal consultant at Tech Point Finance Consult. With extensive professional experience, planning PWC grant author, pricing pedable, World Bank project under the Ministry of Finance, and Dangote Sugar PLC. An accomplished financer, governance, and ESG professional. Dr. Falabi is a member of the ESG Business Global Institute and has received special ESG training through both the Institute and PWC. She has participated in numerous trainings for both ICAN and various institutions. Her recent engagements include training assignments on Nigerian tax-driven decision-making in the Nigerian banking system and Nigerian tax reforms. With her wealth of experience and commitment to continuous professional development, she remains dedicated to advancing professional excellence and capacity building in finance, governance, tax, and ESG practice. Let me welcome Dr. Yvonne Afolabi.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, ESG faculty. Good afternoon, my professional colleagues. It's great to be here. It's great to be here to talk about this most important topic. And thanks to our first facilitator, Mrs. Yewande Adeyemi, who talked extensively about sustainability framework. My bit to be on sustainability finance and green investment. How do we make money but in a sustainable way, and what are the green investments, unlocking new growth opportunities in the sustainability space? This is ESG faculty of ICAN, and it's good we're having such informative section so that we'll know more about ESG, know more about sustainability, because that is the going forward for companies. And as it has been said, it's going to be compulsory for us to state it. We have IFRS S1 and S2, whereby we have to report it in financial statements. So it's very important we as professional colleagues get acquainted with the new normal, so that because ignorance is always not an excuse. So we'll be moving forward to the outline on sustainability finance and green investment. Based on my background in the university and being a finance person, it really gives me concern when we talk about sustainability and the reporting and ESG as a whole. So we're going to pick into introduction to sustainability finance, green investment. What is green investment? ESG as the foundation of sustainability finance. Are the companies taking into cognizance the environment, social and governance, or they're just producing day in, day out without taking effect of what is happening in their environments? It's not supposed to be done as such. Then the fourth will be on emerging trends and growth opportunities in the ESG space. I've been given an hour to speak, so that will be 20 to 2. Should be able to finish before then. So what are the learning objectives of this sustainability finance and green investment? We are explaining the principles of sustainability finance, evaluating the roles of green investment, analyze how ESG principles influence strategic decision making. So now in every big company, a small company, a medium company, there's always decision making. So when the board is meeting, when the management are meeting, are they taking into cognizance the environment, social and governance? So ESG is not a thing you do when you're just reporting at the end of the FY. If your decisions are wrong, even from your daily activities, then you are going to miss out when you are now doing your ESG reporting. You're not going to get it right because you've already made several decisions that are not environmentally, socially, or governance friendly. So that's why we need to have it at the back of our minds. And some people usually mistake CSR to ESG. You can do a CSR activity without touching your environment or helping social or governance. It really has just a bit of it, just to maybe if you give something to maybe a motherless, has nothing to do with your environment, social and governance, just a piece of it. ESG on its own is a principle that must be followed in companies. Then we are going to identify emerging trends and growth opportunities. So what is sustainability finance? Because some people may not really have a depth knowledge on it. It's a process of incorporating ESG considerations into financial decisions, just like an oil company wants to produce crude oil, and they're not taking cognizance of the environment. That's why we have host community development fund. And it's a serious matter that has even come down over the years, because some host community, if they are hostile, you will not be able to produce the oil that you want to produce. So you don't just say, let's bring our drilling machines, let's come and drill, and you've not taking cognizance of the people around you. How do we compensate these people? Are we moving them away? Are we giving them education? What do we do to compensate the people around us? So when you're making decisions in the board, in an office, you're thinking about the environment outside you. How are you taking care of them before you make those financial decisions? And also for investment, lending, and capital allocation. So what's the core goal? To generate competitive financial returns while taking cognizance. So we didn't say you should not make your profits. Make all profits you want to make, but take cognizance of your environment, the social, maybe people in your organization, just like in refineries, like when I was in Dangote Sugar, we work shift-based. So you don't now say because sugar has to be produced maybe 24 hours, then the human beings there will work 24 hours. No, why not now do shift-based? So that is taking into cognizance ESG into decision-making. So what are the key objectives of sustainability finance? Promote responsible investment and sustainable development, because a company, maybe you incorporated a company in maybe 2025. Company is not something you run for 1 year and close. You want the company like big, like Gala companies, CAC, they've been in existence like Shell for 100 years, 150 years. That's what a company should be. So that's why we talk about sustainability. What's your plan to make this company a going forward company in the next 100 years, in the next 200 years? We're not talking about the now. The company is something that runs forever. Even we have family business, whereby even though the owners die, we have a board, they continue the company forever. So that's why we need to take into cognizance the environment, social and governance in our day-to-day activities in organizations, and also reduce environmental and social risks. There's always risks involved in any decision that is made. So decision is not just made that, okay, we want to produce this particular item, how much does it cost? So we now do cost of sales, profits. No, what are the other risks involved in producing this particular item? How risky is it? Is it so risky? Do we need to maybe change location of where we're supposed to be producing this item to reduce the risks of the environment, of human beings, and even the governance structure? Then also improve long-term financial performance, because performance shouldn't be, we made profit today and we're making loss for the next 10 years. What's the sustainability plan to ensure that profits are made for a long time in your organization? They also enhance stakeholders' confidence and innovation. So ESG too is, because it's a new development in Nigeria and Africa, so you have to be innovative about it. It's not something that is cast on stone. What do we do better to help our environment, the people we work for, and the governance structure? So what is the evolution of sustainability finance? So in the traditional finance, we always focus on maximizing short-term profits. How do we make our books look good for investors this year without taking into cognizance in the next 10 years, are we still looking good? Because by the time you're polluting your environment for the first year, the second year, the third year, it may not be fully impacted, but by the time maybe the 7th, 10th year, your whole environment will be so polluted that nobody can even pass across there. Just like in some parts of the country that you go to, and before you know it, you start having an illness. It's because such areas need to develop more environmental, social, and governance frameworks and implement it, because it's not just about having framework in a book. You need to implement it and have an action party in your organization that will now help you see through to it that things are actually done in the right way. Because I've seen some people that I know were impacted by staying in some areas because of the pollution that occurs in such jurisdiction. So the evolution is now in the CSR, like I talked about, focusing heavily on philanthropic and community development initiative. So your CSR could be delved into, I know some companies every year, they do CSR activities. So, okay, let's focus on our environment this year. Let's focus on people this year, maybe even your employees. Maybe you want to help them, maybe their family. You say, okay, give them HMO to extend it to your parents and help them feel happy and among within the organization. The third year, you can say, okay, let's focus on governance, the structure. How are decisions affecting governance in this organization, so that it can spread across these years or even within the ESG framework. Then we have ESG integration, incorporating ESG risks and opportunities directly into business decision making. Like I said, when you're having board meetings, management meetings, even operational meetings, even down to the lowest point of view, are you integrating ESG? So ESG is not something you just say, oh, financial accountant, have you included S1 and S2? What did we do? No, that's not it. ESG should be at our back, at our fingertips, so that when we are thinking, our thinking faculty should be reasoning around ESG at every point. What I'm just about to say, is it environmentally friendly? Minus the fact that we want to report on it. The more we make ESG better, the more we even make climate change not get worse over time. So we have to always think about the human beings, think about the environment, think about governance at every decision we're making, because decision is key and it's always timely. So by the time you've made 10, 20, 30 bad environmental decisions, yes, your books are looking good, but now your environment is being dilapidated. And at the end of the day, to still impact that your profit, if it doesn't impact the profit now, to actually impact it in the nearest future. Then we talk about evolution to which is sustainability finance. Financial systems actively support long-term economic, environmental, and social values. So this sustainability is not a now imagination. It's not even medium. It's always long-term. Are you thinking long-term? And for you to even be a good, like a CFO, you need to be thinking long-term. A CFO doesn't think short-term. Then you're not doing your job, but you need to think of the future before you make certain decisions, especially in the manufacturing industry. What we are about to do now, how is it going to impact the oil and gas industry? What we are doing now, how is it going to impact in the next 5 years on our books, in the next 10 years? Do a projection, do the costing of what you need to do to prevent your environment to dilapidate over a period of time. Then we have impact investing, capital intentionally directed towards measurable positive outcomes. And most of the time, it's always the CFO, like I mentioned, that takes up ESG. Even when they are doing ESG reporting, is always the CFO that takes charge of the reporting to show to the board and the chairman. So why is sustainability finance? Why does it matter? It matters a lot because it creates value across multiple dimensions. If you're producing and you're not taking cognizance of maybe the employees, over time, their health could dilapidate. Over time, they could decide to just leave your organization since you don't take cognizance of them. And employees are the gold of your organization. Without them, cannot operate. So you have to always put them into cognizance. That's why empathy is always very important. Empathy to channels through to ESG. But because if you're an empathic leader, you'll be able to think about the environment, social and governance at every decision that you are taking. So for businesses, it improves access to capital. And most of the time, these are investors we are trying to please. They pay so much attention on ESG, even on CSR, little things that you feel are not important are what foreign investors look at in our books. Okay, this year, S1 and S2, what have you done over the years? And a smart person will actually know if you're just writing story or if you actually did it, like if you maybe attach pictures of what you actually did in your environment, how you helped your employees, what you did governance-wise, they will now know that actually you paid attention to it. And there are some investors, when they look through your books and they don't see anything that you assisted the environment, they just pass and move on. And they will just say they've rejected giving you fund, and you'll be wondering why. You say, okay, but I made profits in the last 5 years, I made profits, why are you not giving us money? And they've already seen that you are not paying attention to the environment. And they overseas, they take cognizance of these little things because they know that they help employees stay for many years, 50 years, 40 years in the organization. And also, they are so particular about the environment. I remember a World Bank project years ago in 1990s, whereby the World Bank introduced planting a tree. They started the project in the Southwest in Ibadan, in Lagos, whereby those set of people in the World Bank projects planted trees across. The first trees, I know some of the people that started the planting in the Southwest. And it's actually a good one because they like thinking about, in the US, they like thinking about the 30 years time, 40 years time, how do we impact climate change so that we don't destroy the environment in the future. So if trees take a lot of time to plant, but by the time we start in the 1990s, by now, they've all sprouted and they were multiplied into different numbers. So that is why ESG may not be an immediate thing. If you plant a tree now, it will take 5 years, 7 years, but start. So that's why starting is important. If in your companies you've not started anything about the environment, you start immediately so that in the next 5, 7, 10 years, you see the impact. While you also look at what are the short-term things we can do now that will actually impact our environment at the moment, what are the medium-term things, and what are the long-term things, put the cost in and incorporate it. So cost of sale shouldn't just be you want to buy paper, want to buy wood, want to buy, no, also incorporate ESG costing into your books. And by the time you speak to the chairman of the board, speak to the board itself about it, they should, and if you are a PLC, you want them to go listed, they will definitely accept the cost and then go ahead to provide such money to ensure that ESG components have been incorporated in your budget for the year. So it also lowers financing costs, enhance competitiveness. Your books will be more competitive because ESG is incorporated in your books, then greater resilience. Your company becomes stronger because you are taking care of your environment. And it also calls for stronger reputation because you can show your effects to any investor, your financial statement to any investor, and be proud that you're actually doing what is supposed to be done, both in the compliance part of ensuring you follow the IFRS and the fact that you're actually impacting your environment positively. So for investors, there are better risk management, stable long-term returns, increased transparency. They feel if you are following ESG, your risk level is lower when they want to invest money in you. Because if you are not taking care of your environment, definitely their money may delve into losses because the environment could actually impact your business negatively. So they look into those things and it actually improves your portfolio resilience, like I mentioned, when they see that you are compliant with the environmental, social, and governance framework, they want to invest more in your business. So why does sustainability matter? The second part is for society too. Economic inclusion, climate resilience. The more we are all ESG compliant, the more our climate will stop dilapidating because this climate change keeps getting worse by the year. And this is just year 2026. So before 2050, what do we want to see? So by the time we want our climate to get better, just like during COVID, the climate change actually reduced because the number of cars in the world reduced, the pollution and the carbon dioxide reduced in the world, in the space. So that's why climate got better in the year 2020. But by the time we came back all moving about, it actually started dilapidating again. So there are ways we can actually, so just imagine from that COVID, they said, okay, in order to help the climate, let's all stop using cars across. There are some countries that use electric cars. That's one of the ways to actually help the environment. So if climate got better within this period, then why can't we just stop using cars so that carbon dioxide will stop being in the space? That's actually ways to help the environment and actually now being compliant with ESG across different organizations. Then it actually creates jobs because maybe you want to employ people that will do the ESG part of your work. It actually creates jobs per each company, then improves quality of life. Surely, if like in the part of the country that produce oil, if they keep on being intentional, because ESG, you have to be intentional about it. Everybody's busy. One is producing A, one is producing B, one is doing payroll, one is doing, so somebody too should be busy doing the ESG in that environment, because as you're doing it, you're actually improving the lives of those around you. Because if maybe employees keep falling sick, then who will come and do this work? We know that, okay, there is AI, but we are in the third world country like Nigeria, we are still dependent on human beings as much as possible. So let's try and always ensure someone is also being busy in the organization, focusing on ESG, as somebody is also busy trying to generate profits. Then sustainability development too is actually important for the society. Then for government, why is sustainability finance? Why does it matter? It achieves national sustainability goals. We have SDG goals, 17 of them, and the UN is particular about it. So it actually helps them, and there is even There's even an SDG on climate itself. So they're actually particular about it government-wide. Then we have attraction of responsible investments. Can actually, because the government too seeks for investors, which we've actually seen across the news, so that it can actually attract investors countrywide, and also economic diversification and then climate adaptation. Climate change is worldwide. They always have the G8 meeting, G16 meeting. So those things actually discussed too. So this thing we call ESG is not just your local environment. It's actually, the sky is one. So it's actually affecting the whole world. So the more we do our small bits as organizations, you know that, yes, I'm actually impacting the world invariably. So that's why this ESG discourse is very, very important. The next section is on green investment. I'm sure we've heard the word green investment. It refers to the allocation of financial resources, like I mentioned, as everybody's busy producing this, producing that, doing services. Let there be an allocation of money for the purpose of attending to projects, businesses, technologies, infrastructure that contribute to environmental sustainability while generating long-term economic returns. So let returns be on one hand, but let the environment be paid attention to at the other hand, so that you ensure that everything is at par. Because if maybe, even though it's a machine, I've seen where machines keep running 24 hours, running, at the end of the day, they pack up. So not to talk of human beings and the environment. The environment packs up when you keep infusing it with pollutants. So it's actually very important to reduce it. Like this picture at the right-hand side, if you don't put humus, don't put water every day, the plants will die. So that's one thing about the environment is volatile. You need to pay attention to it. If not, there will be a negative impact on the environment. So while you are focusing on the growth of your business as a CFO, as a financial accountant, as the head of finance, talk to your board. Most boards don't know about ESG. Most chairmen don't know about it. I know a lot of such. So it's our responsibility to bring it up, to say, sir, I want to put up an ESG unit, or I want to bring consultants to take charge of our ESG framework. Let's have a framework. I know some government organizations that some young people come together to bring up that ESG framework, then give it to a consulting firm to beef up, and they will not have an ESG framework. I know of such that I've seen. So it's something we need to speak out to organizations for, because most people, in fact, some people will say ESG, they'll say, what's that? So they're not really aware about it because it's kind of new, but not so new to us. So you need to speak to your chairman, speak to your board, because as a head of accounts, as a CFO, you have the opportunity to sit in the board and talk to them about it. That you have a small report you want to show them, ESG, and tell them what it is, and also put a cost in that, okay, going forward, 2026 FY, this is what and what we're going to do based on the environment, this is the cost, the social aspect for employees and for governance. And even though the cost is much, it's not cost, it's when you defend your budget and it's reasonable that the board will actually now accept or reject. So as much as possible, make it easy to understand so that they'll be able to approve it and you'll be able to implement it. Because if the finance person, the CFO doesn't do this, it may not actually come to reality in the organization. Or tell consultants to send proposals and show your board, try and bid down the price if it's so high, just to ensure that this ESG has started in your organization, because we are the driving force of the accountants. Chartered accountants are driving force of ESG, not just for the IFRS S1 and S2, but to actually impact our environment. And unlike conventional investment that focus primarily on financial gains, green investment aims to deliver measurable environmental benefits alongside sustainability economic growth. Just like some states, if you compare a state that doesn't have maybe trees, now you compare states that have, or streets, maybe you pass some streets that have trees, you see how cool the environment will be. Unlike some other streets that will just be building to building, the whole place will be harsh and humid. So that's why it's very important that we pay attention to this, to actually balance. And maybe workers that they are sweating and they're not able to deliver as much as an environment that is cool, you'll be able to work there for hours without knowing that you're actually working. So those little things actually matter to actually even help you as a human being and actually now help your environment. That's why it is a framework of 3 different legs: the environment, the social part, which is human beings, and then the governance structure of the organization. So these investments support the transition to a low carbon, climate resilient, and resource effective economy. So like I was saying, the use of, when we didn't use cars, carbon dioxide is what comes out from cars. So by the time we reduced it, it actually helped the climate to be resilient. So that's why it's very important we pay attention to such phenomenon. The next sub is why green investment matters. What does it matter to actually separate a fund for ESG in your organization? Because if you don't put it in your budget, you can't just come one day and say, sir, we need 5 million to do so and so. From where? It actually has to be planned. So global challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, you see some extinct animals dying and all because the environment is changing by the day and their ecosystem has changed over the years. So it's actually reducing the biodiversity across the globe. Then pollution, resource scarcity too, actually are what is the negative effect of not attending to ESG in our environment. So government alone cannot finance the transition to a sustainable economy. In fact, they have little or less impact on this because they can't come to your organization to say, okay, stop doing this, stop pouring smoke in this place. No, it's us, it's we that are supposed to pay attention to it because per person, per organization makes up the country. The country is not one on its own. It's made up of different organizations that now make up the country as a whole. So you can't leave it to the government. Private sector participation is absolutely essential. That's why we are speaking about it. That's why we also have the ESG faculty in ICAN to actually address these issues. Because by the time we are speaking to ourselves more on it, we'll be able to get more knowledge and be able to implement it in the organization. Green investment helps to accelerate climate action, promote clean energy adoption, improve energy efficiency, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So anything that can reduce greenhouse gas emission, any new technology can always adopt it. That's why we have the internet. Browse about it. Okay, I'm in a organization that will keep emitting gas every second. What do I do to change this? Read about it. What are the new technologies? Just like we have solar panels instead of using electricity. Even some oil companies now, they have a department that attends to installing solar panels for companies, energy companies. So it's very important. That's why we should always be open to new technologies, because it's with that we'll be able to reduce the status quo of what has been going on in our environment. Actually, green investment supports sustainability infrastructure, enhance environmental resilience, generate employment opportunity, like I mentioned, and stimulates economic growth. And organizations that invest in sustainability today are positioning themselves for a stronger competition in future. Because like I said, the company is not something you just open today and close tomorrow. No. When the company, the owner of the company will be excited after 40 years, this company is still in existence. That's what we call sustainability. They're not making money for the now. They're looking into the future of how your company can still be in existence for the next 100 years and more. The next sub is the global green economy. What's the green economy? We heard about green economy. What does it mean? It's an economic system that promotes growth while improving human well-being. So we are saying, yes, focus on the growth, fine, but also ensure that we are improving human well-being, reducing environmental risks, and using natural resources more effectively, especially the environment, because you're in your company, AC is on, it's blowing you, you are producing. What of your environment around you? When you come out in the evening, maybe come out in the night, so you don't even know that you were affecting everybody around your street. So you come out in the night with AC car, go home, come again the next day, and before you know it, the people in your environment will just carry placard and tell you to shut down because you're affecting the environment. So that's why an action party, action department, consultant must be there to ensure they do a risk assessment. Okay, let's go around this community. What's happening there? How is our activity affecting the environment within us? And then we'll be able to give the reports on the risk assessment base, submit to the management, and to take action on how to reduce it. So we're not saying it can be, some are inevitable, but how do we reduce the risks of the environment with what we are doing with our activities? What new things can we bring up to actually reduce? What channel? Some people can decide to maybe take a pipe all the way so that the waste can go far away from the immediate environment. They actually waste, and it costs money. So that's why a budget needs to be put in place for ESG to ensure that it's being done and being implemented. It's not just about the framework. You can have textbooks or frameworks, but action party of, okay, this is what we are doing daily to produce our ESG to stay, so that when you're actually now reporting it in your books with the standards, you'll be able to do a beautiful work, and you are sure that those are what you did. You didn't just copy and paste from another financial statement. It's actually what you took interest to do, and using natural resources more effectively. What are the characteristics of green economy? We have low carbon emission, which is a very important one based on the climate. So your thinking should be, okay, how am I reducing carbon emission in this my ESG framework? Then resource effectiveness. Someone can be given maybe 5 bags of cement now, another person will be given 5 bags. The way the first person will use it will be different from the way the second person will use it, because the first person is thinking efficiency, while the other person is just saying this is cement, is used to produce block, while the other person is thinking outside the box on how it can be used without polluting the environment. You can even use cement, and the way you pour it can actually enter your lungs. And the other person who is ESG compliant is taking it easy with the dust, knowing that if he just throws it anyhow, it's going to affect workers. So that's why speaking to your staff even about the environment, ESG is actually important too, so that their daily activities that sum up for their profit is actually not affecting both the environment, they themselves, and governance. So we have social inclusion. So how are you bringing your people together, your employees? But those are the people that will help you execute your profits that you want to make. And sustainability production. There has been so many cases whereby people are just driven with profits. Their mind is just on profit. They're not thinking about any other thing. And at the end of the day, it always backfires. There's never been a case whereby they just keep on and everything keeps going on fine. Even though you've been producing for maybe 300 days and your machines break down, you actually have to now start repairing or buying a new set and start incurring new fixed assets and also all these little things matter. And the best way to actually implement ESG, like I mentioned, is to have action parties, representatives of them. And you don't necessarily, if you want to cut on costs, it can be the CFO that will be the ESG specialist on the team. Yeah, so the CFO can now be relating with a consultant. So that doesn't mean you must go and create a new department if you are trying to cut on unnecessary costs. Then appoint somebody in organizations. Some things have to be done. So you appoint people. It's not just the 8 to 5. You also do other things that will actually help holistically in your organization. Okay, you're the person that does this, you're the person that gathers for birthday, you're the person that checks the environment, you're the person that follows up with the risks department to check the environment. So action parties, once there is no action party, it will just be a reporting time that we just say, oh, what did we even do in this FYO? We start going around and searching all your books. No, but if there is somebody that will be called upon to actually help out a lot. So another characteristic is sustainable production. They're not just thinking of, oh, our machine is up, let's keep on. How many bags, how many cartons have we produced, without taking cognizance of how this machine is going to work for the next number of years. Then we have responsible consumption, innovative driven development. We are thinking innovation. That's why it's always good to use our spare time, look into the internet, read news, even listen to news, listen to CNN, to BBC, learn what is happening. Maybe an hour they are showing new developments. Learning is not when you just sit down in a classroom. You can learn from anybody. You can learn from Gen Z, Gen Y. You can learn from anything at any point. So that's why it's always important to learn the new normal so that we can adopt it for our ESG framework. Then we have climate resilience at every point. Let's think about our climate, because it's actually affecting. You see rainy season now, you don't even know the difference between rainy season, when it's supposed to start, supposed to stop. It just keeps flowing. It's because the climate has dilapidated to an extent that rain could fall during dry season. It's all this ESG non-compliance that is causing the mismatch in the climate. Then we have long-term economic prosperity. So what are some of the principles of green investment? Some of the core principles are environmental sustainability. How are you sustaining your environment? Sustainability is looking into the future, not the short term, not the medium term, but looking into the future. We have economic viability. Your investment should generate sustainable financial return. So we didn't just say financial return, but let it be sustainable and remain commercially visible and viable. Let it not just be to make that money. You can always make the money and still pay attention to environment. It's very, very possible, as long as you have that consciousness. And like I said, most companies don't know about ESG. So we as finance people have to keep driving it every time. Maybe monthly management meeting. They say if anybody AOB, can even be in an AOB. say I'm here again to talk about environment, social and governance, and you say, okay, I will share my findings with you after the meeting. It could just be a minute. So by the time they keep hearing ESG, or Shama can say one day that, okay, where is even this ESG person? Or where are you? Come and tell us what you've been talking about. So the more we keep being champions of ESG, the more it will be implemented in our organizations. Then social responsibility too. Green investment should create positive outcomes for communities, for employees, and future generations. Then we have good governance. Projects should demonstrate transparency, accountability, and ethical management. Ethics is never overemphasized, especially in organizations. Be ethical in what you're doing, because if you're also ethical, you're actually helping your environment to following the principles of ethics. Then you have to be transparent and accountable. Then we have long-term value creation. You should think about the long-term when you are creating value in the organization. So what are green investments across industries? So in terms of ESG, some companies need to pay more attention to it than others. Some industries, just like the banking, we have green lending, sustainable finance products, ESG investment portfolio. So the banks have products to actually help companies that want to come forward to say, okay, we have an ESG framework, come and help us, give us investment, give us money, fund us to be able to implement, because ESG is not, especially the environmental part, is not cheap. So sometimes companies can go forward to their financiers to actually help them, give them funds, and talk about the payment plan and how they could actually help them implement ESG in their environment. Manufacturing too is one of the major sectors that actually affect the environment. We have energy efficiency production. There's so many machines now that are energy efficient. They're not polluting the environment. We have waste reduction. Some companies convert their waste, just like Shopper that time. They take waste and convert it to something else. So there are ways to actually help ensure you don't just say, okay, this is waste and flush it down on the road. No, it's not done anyway. You try and see how you can convert. Even in Lagos State, whereby when you want to buy something, they'll ask you, do you want nylon? And if you say yes, you will pay for it. That's actually an ESG consciousness statewide. So if each state takes it up, just like plastic too, whereby they don't sell things. If you buy juice now, you will see straw, you see paper. Although those papers are not effective because you can't use it to drink that thing, but actually it's an approach to actually help the environment. So by the time each company is doing this, each state is trying to say, okay, no more purchase of it, no more giving nylon anyhow when you're shopping. That's actually steps to take, because governments to bring consultants that help them talk about these things. And those are what such things that they suggest to the government. So if government is taking conscious efforts to do that, why can't we as chartered accountants actually help our organizations to be effective? You can have a canteen organization. Are you giving nylons anyhow? So if a state could be implementing such, why not we as individuals, even in the manufacturing sector, the team, the managers should sit down and see how they could actually, the health, safety, and environment manager should actually be a representative to, along with the CFO, to drive down ESG in organizations with the help of consultants to see that they are driving the ESG in their organization. So minus the reporting aspect, like I've always said, this is also actually helping our day-to-day living so that lifespan of human beings can keep increasing instead of reducing, because the more is reducing is because of the fact that we're not cognizant of our environment. That's why all these new developments are happening. Then we have cleaner technologies. How are we adopting? And these new technologies, it's always just see it as something that is fun, because by the time you see it as stress, you don't want to even adopt new technologies. But new technologies, when you see it as, oh, let's even see what's happening in the space, you'll be able to adopt it better and easier. Then we have a continuation in the agricultural sector. We have precision farming. We have sustainability irrigation, whereby we are irrigating. That's artificial application of water in an environment that doesn't necessarily have water initially. And we have regenerative agriculture. Think about it, don't just bring maybe humus from artificial parts, just like you see eggs that they produce nowadays that doesn't even look like egg again. Those are degenerative actions and multically generated items all over in the environment, in tomatoes, so many things. So the agricultural sector to have to pay attention to the environment and human beings that they are producing these items for, because the more we keep eating artificial items that we thought was natural, the more it will keep degenerating, and the more the lifespan of human beings. Then we also have transportation, electric mobility, just like I mentioned, in US, in Spain, they use electric cars, but we don't know the year Nigeria will start using electric cars. Although on Sundays, sometimes I see it in Abuja, people using electric cars. So the more we imbibe this, the more we're actually helping our environment. So that's also maybe a government policy whereby maybe importation duties on carbon dioxide cars will be more than electric cars so that they can actually help electric cars coming more into the country. That's actually a countrywide implementation strategy. So ESG is not just we as individuals, it's also for companies and it's also for the government too as a whole, because it's the environment is one, like I mentioned. Then we have green logistics and low emission infrastructure. So green logistics, I know a company that sends items using drones. Drones are not polluting the environment. Unlike maybe if you're using a motorcycle to be moving your logistic item every day, you actually increasing the risks of environmental pollution. So how are we thinking the green? So everything you're thinking when you're making decision as a chartered accountant should be more of green before you talk about the local or the formal ways that are actually affecting your environment. Then we have low emission infrastructure. Your infrastructure you're about to buy, are there better ones? So that's why you need to keep searching. Are there better ones that are low emission, that will produce low emission than the one we're about to buy? You have existing ones, fine. But when you want to buy a new item as a chartered accountant, always ask yourself, what are the green technologies to what I'm about to buy? And get it instead of actually buying what is actually going to pollute the environment. Then we have technology too, technological sector. We have clean technologies, digital sustainable solutions, artificial intelligence for environmental management. Artificial intelligence is we have robotics. So instead of bringing somebody buying something that will pollute the environment, a robot is not emitting anything. So why don't we adopt it? Although in Nigeria, such has not reached, but I know a lot of adverts we even see on the TV now are actually AI generated. So before you know it, AI will keep coming into the country just like that. So we need to imbibe technology to ensure we are not left behind. Then every industry has opportunities to integrate green investments into their growth strategy. So always think green when you're making decisions as a CFO, as a finance person. And that's why we're doing this seminar, to learn more, because you may say, how am I going to think green? The more you keep applying ESG faculty of ICAN, of different societies, you keep learning, and before you know it, you become an expert and be able to suggest green ideas to your company. What are the challenges to green investments? Definitely, there are always challenges to everything that is new. We have high upfront costs. Definitely, there is a cost of running this aspect of the organization, limited access to green financing, regulatory uncertainty. Regulations could come up that could favor or disfavor it, but as much as possible, try as much as possible to do the little things you can do that will sum up to bigger things. Then technology risks, limited technical expertise. You can actually say, okay, once we even invite someone from India, consult, do this, do that, install this, and install that, as a one-off consultant. The person goes just because you want to ensure that you're actually ESG compliant. And inadequate ESG data has always been limited. But the more we pay particular attention to it, the more we'll get there. Then we have market volatility. Then we have greenwashing concerns. Like I said, when people are just cooking the books to just look good in the ESG space. So what is the challenges to green investment? An example, you might remember the controversy back in 2019 when McDonald's introduced paper straws, like I mentioned that we do now in Nigeria, that turned out to be non-recyclable. You cannot recycle a paper straw. So aside from the questionable practice of cutting down trees to make disposable straws, so now the fact that they are making paper, because straw that is made of paper is made from a tree. So it means they cut down more trees to produce these disposable straws. So this was a classic example of a corporate giant pretending to address an issue. So they're trying to address an issue using paper straw, but at the same time, they are still cutting down trees. So you're using Peter to paper, you're robbing Peter to paper. So that doesn't actually work. So in this case, plastic pollution was actually doing something wrong. We're actually trying to reduce the waste in the environment, but you're still cutting down trees. So you are still affecting your environment. Another cyclical greenwashing move is to slap a green label on something to make it appear more sustainable or healthy. As Coca-Cola will say maybe 6.6% sugar low, but at the same time, we are still drinking sugar, even though they say it has moved from 100 to 0, but to make it, you still have to make use of sugar. So those are some examples of greenwashing. So if we actually want to eradicate it, then they will maybe diversify to something else that will actually reduce the intake of maybe sugar for human beings, as the case may be. So what are the ways to overcome the challenges? By strong policy framework, public-private partnerships, ESG disclosure standards, make sure you follow it, capacity building. So in case you are not sure of how to implement ESG, why not follow the standards? By the time you follow it, you'll be able to follow what an ESG framework should be. Then we have capacity building, like we are doing, keep building your staff on the ESG matters, and before you know it, they'll become experts in such nomenclature. Then we have innovative financing mechanism and improved investor education. We have a case study of green investment. A commercial bank establishes a dedicated green finance program to support business investing in renewable energy, energy-effective manufacturing, and sustainable agriculture. So investment finance, solar-powered manufacturing facilities. So they decided to choose solar instead of choosing the normal electricity that produces emission to the environment. Then climate-smart farming projects. We have some farming projects, methods that are climate-free than some others. And we have green commercial buildings. And we have electric vehicle fleets. So instead of bringing carbon dioxide vehicles, you actually decide to bring electric vehicles. And as we know, electric vehicles are not cheap. So that's why ESG sometimes needs financing from different sources for implementation. The results from what they did here, the commercial bank, was to now reduce carbon emission, lower operating costs for borrowers, increase loan portfolio diversification, because your portfolio will keep increasing the more you are ESG compliant, and enhanced ESG reputation, because you have a reputation of how you are implementing your ESG, then attraction of international development finance. They will be able to, Finance Development Institute to be able to assist you by the time they see your efforts that are being made. So this is the third session, and second to the last, we have ESG as the foundation. So ESG is the foundation of sustainable finance. So by the time you are thinking of having a finance that is sustainable, it means you've thought about ESG before your finance can now be sustainable for the future. But when you don't pay attention to ESG at all, then you are not thinking of the future in your environment, for your people, and for governance. So what's the ESG principle? Sustainable finance is built on the principle that long-term financial success depends more on it doesn't depend on economic performance alone. Investors and financial institutions actually recognize ESG to influence their business resilience, risk exposure, and value creation. They are thinking about, okay, I'm about to invest 1 billion, 2 billion into your company, but you are not paying attention. There's nothing ESG in your books. So how do I invest this money? Your business will collapse over a period of time, and my money will go into the drain. So I'm not investing. That's even if they choose to tell you these details, but most times they just say no, but you don't even know why. So why don't you just become compliant? And that's why we always have notes to the accounts. Talk about all the activities you did related to ESG per FY. So ESG is not just something you do today and go and sleep. No, it's continuous. Each FY, let something be done. Keep improving on the environment, on what we planted 5 trees. We are waiting for it to grow. Just put the pictures, and all those investors, funny enough, look at those little things, even smile just about it. And it's actually now help you get that financing you're looking out for your organization. And as finance people, you don't want a no from your investors, because it actually affect your KPI at the end of the day. So why not take ESG important so that you can actually even meet your KPIs as a CFO, as a finance person. ESG provides the framework for evaluating how organizations manage sustainability-related risks. They attract responsible investment and create sustainable long-term value. What are the 4 pillars of sustainability? We have pillars of sustainability. We have environmental sustainability, that's protecting your ecosystem. You see some people maybe will cut down trees, not knowing that those trees was actually preventing erosion. So by the time they've cut it down, then their whole road will be flooded. It's because they didn't take cognizance of the environment, and now it's impacting on them. And before you know it, maybe rain will fall and start falling inside the company. So why did you do it the wrong thing from the beginning? So that's why it's always important to, and if you don't know, you seek advice. Have an advisor that will advise you. These are the activities we want to take. Advisors, and they will do a sharp advice, and you'll be able to prevent errors in your organization. We have social sustainability. We have that's promoting equity, inclusion, health, safety. That's why we always have HSC, especially in manufacturing companies, in oil and gas. Health, safety, and environment is very, very important, and it must be timely. If maybe someone that is running a shift doesn't inform somebody about something that occurred within their shift, it could actually affect human beings. The biggest oil mishap in the world was actually a shift misinformation. The person did not tell the next person what happened, and the whole place was set ablaze in the next shift. So that's why all these little things matter, especially in very sensitive sectors of the economy. Then we have economic sustainability, ensuring long-term financial viability, innovation, and inclusive economic growth. And we have human sustainability. That's developing people continually through education like we are doing. We have mandatory, compulsory professional learnings, skills, innovation, and leadership training. You can literally even take your board, maybe during a board meeting, maybe the December one, you could just bring a facilitator to talk about ESG. The more boards know about ESG, the more they will be able to implement it. And when they see such bills, they'll be able to approve it because you've also informed them. So as we are learning, to also teach our board about it so that they will be acquainted with what ESG is about. Then we have ESG and investment decision making, risk assessment. Like I said, each activity you want to do has different levels of risks. So it's not because you did one, you now say is high risk, then every other thing you want to do is high risk. No, some may be low risk, some may not have risk, some may be medium, a mild risk. Then you ask yourself, what's our risk appetite? So that's why it's always that's why big companies have risk departments to actually analyze risks across each activity. It's not a generalized thing. Each activity produces different risks, and you now talk about your risk appetite before you know if you're taking such steps or not. And we have investor benefits, identifies long-term business risks and true corporate resilience. So an investor will tell you, where's your risk report for this funding you want us to do? What have you found out? You must have found out something before you just apply for funds for a particular divestment or investment. Then assess regulatory preparedness and limits reputational exposure. You should ensure, like as a PLC, you must always have S1, S2 in your books. Are you regulatory compliant? Is your financial accountant, because some financial accountants may not even know the ESG completely. So you actually need to keep being aware of it, so that when an investor is speaking, the investor may be speaking to the chairman or the CEO without you, and they'll say, there's no ESG in these books. It means the financial accountant is already in trouble. So that's why it's very important we start from this background to ensure we are equipped, so that when our bosses are talking to investors, we may not be there, we may be there. They're actually proud of the books that you've given them. They could just say, send me the FX. I have somebody else to give it to an investor, and that person will just go straight to the notes of account to check what has been happening, because it's not just the P&L financial position. They'll go straight to the back to see what's happening in your organization. But that's what speaks to what has been happening in your organization over different FYs. Then, like the first speaker said earlier on, Mrs. Yewande Adeniyi, she talked elaborately on the global ESG frameworks and standards. We have the GRI, we have the IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. We have SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standard Boards, so that people that keep coming together and reframing this ESG so that we get it right. Then we also have the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, which I said was 17, and one specifically speaks to climate, one speaks to social. The SDG, 17 SDGs covers almost everything in the space. Then we move to ESG ratings and their role in investment. Independent agencies assess organizations and assign ESG rating. So in a rating of 10, where does organization fall? Is it -5, -4, or are you good? Are you getting better? Because ESG is something you can keep getting better on. Like after you're learning, you say, okay, let me go and implement a green technology organization, and your rating increases in another FY. These ratings help investors compare companies within the same industry. Maybe industry A, manufacturing juice, industry B, manufacturing the same juice. We're having an industry comparison. then assess sustainability risks, identify responsible investment opportunities, and improve portfolio management. So your ESGs minus the reporting aspect, you're actually improving your portfolio management. And as a CFO, as a finance person, you always want your portfolio to look good. Portfolio is the whole organization, the assets, both human beings, both fixed assets, current assets, everything that has to do with your organization, bring it as a portfolio to investors to say, this is what we have as an organization. And they look at all aspects, including ESG, to know if they're actually investing in your business or not. Then it supports long-term investment strategy. Like I said, as accountant, we should not look at the present, we should always look into the future. What I'm about to do or the activity or my suggestion, how is it impacting the future? So what are the challenges in ESG implementation? We have inconsistent ESG reporting standards, which are getting better by the year, limited availability of reliable data. Data has been low over the years, but the more we keep being intentional, the more we keep gathering data. And some organizations like Free, CREAN, there's some old organizations around us that actually have such important climate data that we could visit. Forestry Institute, some of those old, because ESG has been taking cognizance of from foreign institutions over the years. So they should be able to have reliable data to actually help us analyze for the future. Then we have high implementation costs, which we always know. So the more we keep our organization informed, that's the C-suite management, to be able to actually approve, and the board actually be able to approve the cost that you brought forward for ESG. Then skills and knowledge gap, that's why we are learning, unlearning, learning and relearning to ensure that we close the knowledge gap. Then we have difficulty in measuring social impact. Some people will say, okay, they helped the environment. How do we measure the impact of this help? You can decide to say, okay, these 50 people in this host community spent 50 million on hospital bills last year. This year, they spent only 10 million. It means the social impact is 40 million. You've been able to save 40 million. So you can ask, okay, give us all your medical bills for this year, for all the host community. Compare it with the last year's own. That's the social impact you can actually put in your books. So there are actually ways to, if you just think outside the box, be able to measure even social impact in your environment. Then we have regulatory uncertainty and the risks of greenwashing too, of companies that just package. It's very easy to package books to actually look good, whereby you're not actually doing your activities. Then overcoming these challenges requires strong governance. So that's why governance is very important. If there's no governance in place, everybody will just be doing things the way they like. So that's why corporate governance is very important to drive down these other aspects of the environment and social capacity building and continuous improvement. So ESG is not something you say we've gone wrong and you just fold your hand and relax. No, what do we do from today, from this day forward, to actually help the environment going forward? We have a case study here. I'll soon be done. We have 2 manufacturing companies seek financing to expand their operation. Company A has high carbon emissions, weak governance, poor workplace safety records, because HSC to produce reports every week, every day. They write daily reports, ensure maybe there are low accidents in the company. So all those safety reports, are they in your organization? They're limited sustainability reporting. So in an organization, everything needs to be reported. You don't just do it and say, oh, our HSC person has looked around, everywhere is fine. No, you need to write a report that there was no incident today, there's no incident tomorrow. So by the time you are attaching it for an investor, they'll know that, okay, the level of incidents within a year was just 5 this year. It became 2, it became 3. I know some HSC people that when there's an incident or a death, they are so sad because they know that it's actually impacting on their rating holistically. Then we have company B, who are the energy efficiency operations, strong governance, comprehensive ESG reporting, and robust employee well-being programs. So if I'm to ask, if you're an investor, who will you give your money to? Is it company A or company B? You can actually put it in the chat box. If you're an investor and someone came to you and his books, the notes to the account has high carbon emission, weak governance. But when there's weak governance, structure will not be in place. Structure cannot be in place in a place where there is weak governance. So it's very important that we take cognizance of governance in organization. And some, like I said, some board are not knowledgeable about these things. So when they are doing trainings or during your board meeting, talk about governance, corporate governance. Say, I want to tell your chairman, I want to quickly talk about corporate governance for the next 5 minutes. You make it high level. Teach them. By the time you talk to it, they want talk to them the next 3 months, talk to them the next 3 months. By the end of the year, they will say, okay, please, who do we bring together to put our structure well in this organization? And you get it right. So that's why it's very, very important to ensure that chartered accountants are equipped to actually give the right information to the board and to the CEO, and for it to be also mentioned to the chairman. So in this case, it's actually company B that the investor will give the money to. We have a case study here to investor assessment, which is what the investor now assessed. Although both companies demonstrated similar financial performance, they both did well financially. But company B is considered a low-risk investment due to a strong ESG profile. So in your books, there should be a part on how you reduced environmental negative impacts, how your governance structure is solid, then your safety records are intact, and then you have your IFRS S1, S2 reporting well. For investors, you may not say, okay, because I'm a small company now, it's not needed. No. What if your company is listed in the next 10 years? Most organizations, they actually wish to all be big someday. So why not as chartered accountants do the right thing for your company from day one? Because they can say, give us the last 10 years of your FX. What will be there? Is it just normal activities, nothing talked about on ESG? So from now, you always have an ESG reporting in our books. So a discussion to take home is, how does ESG influence the investor's perception of long-term value and risk? So as an accountant, take it home. How does ESG influence ESG in my books? How do they influence investors' perception of long-term value and risk? And funny enough, these past books are always important. I've seen whereby investors will say, give us your FX for the last 5 years. We want to see the trend. And if everywhere is empty, the investors don't waste time to move on. So that's why it's very important to take cognizance of it from now. The fourth and last session is emerging trends and growth opportunities in sustainability finance. The future of finance belongs to organizations that can anticipate change, embrace innovation, and align profitability with sustainability. So we're not just talking about profit, we're talking about sustainability, a long-term work. And change, we've seen now that change is inevitable. When we were younger, so many things that are up now, we never knew it to be. Just like even these electric cars, if they told you when you were little that there will be electric cars, you say, how is that possible? But it's coming. So in the next 30 years, a lot of things will change. And if we don't embrace it, we're actually going to be left behind. So that's why it's very important to anticipate change, be open to change, learn the new normal. Don't think of what you did yesterday. What do I do better today to help my environment? What do I do to help my employees? Or bring proper governance to my organization. In this, you're going to actually be increasing profits indirectly or directly, and also help sustainability. So your company doesn't fold up in a number of years. As an accountant, you will not want your company to fold up for even host communities. When they really rally around oil companies, you could stop work for some days till they answer them. Even sometimes when you finish giving them 3% of operating expense, they will still disturb you. So there are some people that are host community representative who are almost indigenous of that community, to speak the same language with them, to cool down, to calm down. And we've seen it in over the years, whereby people have to go and speak to them because those people are not learned. So how are we attending to our environment? There's nothing bad in saying, who knows this language? Oh, yeah, go and talk to these people, calm them down. It actually helps. And say, okay, this is what we are going to do, and they'll be happy. Or we'll send your children to school, free education. Put it as part of your donations in your organization, which is actually tax-free if it's done in a REN way. And you're actually now helping your environment, helping the production itself, that is the main aim of business, and actually now being compliant with the standards that has been given to us by IFRS, FRC, and all. So it's a web, it's a value chain that helps everybody, both employees, both profits, both the environment. Why don't we now take it up to actually see to it and make it being implemented in our organization? We have regulatory developments. Government and regulators are introducing stronger ESG disclosure requirements and sustainable finance policies. Like I mentioned, in some states, they are introducing whereby they reduce the use of pollutants in the environment. What are the trends shaping finance? We have investor expectations. Most investors now are more knowledgeable than us. They know more about it. So they are always looking out for the ESG reporting, your framework in your organization. That's why even government establishments, if you have worked, they have some team that talk about ESG because they themselves need funding. And the investors too will actually ask for such. The World Bank, DFI, they will actually ask for such information, the framework, because framework is what is behind your ESG, the principles you are following. So by the time they see a weak framework, then they know that they don't need to look at your reporting. It's actually going to be weak. And we have consumer demands. Consumers are favoring products and services that demonstrate environmental and social responsibility. Some are going away from using plastic to just ensure they help the environment, because once you have a plastic, it means you have to throw it away somewhere, and it's actually blocking somewhere, and it's actually causing environmental pollution. Then we have technological innovation. The technology space has actually helped ESG become more visible, the clean energies and all. So we have AI and sustainable finance, application of AI for ESG data analysis, climate risk modeling, fraud detection, predictive analysis, energy optimization, smart investment decision support. What are the benefits of these? We have faster analysis. We all know that AI actually analyzes that, although it's always good to learn it on your own. If you say maybe a financial model and an AI to help you project, it's going to project in error most of the time. So it's always good to still learn it and know what the data set should be before you just depend on AI. Then we have enhanced operational efficiency, better identification of emerging risks, and more accurate, sustainable reporting. We also have examples of financial technology. We have digital payment systems, online ESG investment platforms, sustainable crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is when you ask A, B, C, D, E, F to contribute money for your sustainable activities. We have mobile banking, blockchain-enabled green financing, digital lending for clean energy projects. So we have lending. Some banks help organizations with their clean energy projects, which, so walk up to your bank, find out, no, one will tell you yes. So it's always good to ask questions. So the growth opportunity, fintechs expand access to capital while improving transparency and reducing transactional costs. We also have sustainable supply chains. The time will soon be up. This address sustainability across the entire value chain. Like I said, it's a value chain. If A is doing something wrong, B is doing something wrong, then C to Z is doing something right. The A and B doing something wrong can affect the whole value chain. So that's why we have managers who ensure that the whole value chain is doing the right thing to ensure that there is no leakage within the system that will still impact on the environment negatively. So what are the key considerations? Ethical sourcing, human rights compliance, environmental performance. Do a performance on your environment. Like I mentioned, the fastest way to know if you're affecting your environment is to ask the people around you, do statistics. Bring all your medical bills, let's see. And if it keeps reducing, if it keeps increasing, then you know that there's a problem. Then you need to go back to the drawing book to actually get things right in your environment. Climate innovation. Innovation is one of the strongest drivers. Think why, think how do we innovate? Clean energy technologies, electric mobility, carbon. You see some tractors now, you see some that are electric. So instead of bringing the ones that will still be polluting your farm and polluting the product, why not bring an electric tractor that will help you and actually reduce? When you're reporting, we have an electric tractor, we use it to produce 1,000 pieces of so and so. That's an ESG activity that you are doing to actually help your ESG reporting and help the environment. We have carbon management solutions, water conservation, innovation. Are you using gen to pump water? Why don't you wait for light or use an inverter to actually pump water in your organization? That's actually, so ESG is just little things that matter, daily activities put together that actually bring up the ESG framework. And it's very, you don't lose out on you can use every unit, every department. What are we doing? What are we doing right? Put everything together and you see that how you are impacting your environment positively across units and departments in your organization. And we have environmental consulting. That's why we have consultants who are deep into this knowledge that will help you speak to your tailored needs. So ESG is tailored. What they are saying concerning maybe manufacturing company may be different from what you are saying in oil and gas or banking. So it differs. That's why consulting is very important in this aspect. So then we have human capital for green economy. The transition to a sustainable economy requires new skills and competence. That's why we're learning now. Keep learning, relearning until you get it. We have expertise in ESG reporting, sustainability strategy. So strategy will now, your strategies will now be in your framework. And we have climate risk management, renewable energy and sustainable procurement. So that's why it's always good to be open. You can just read green energy, read about it today, green economy, read about it, get knowledgeable. Talk about it, discuss about it in your meetings. Don't just talk about we made 1 billion profit. Say, okay, 5 minutes, let's do a training. Let's bring somebody to speak to us. All those things matter. Then we have organizational priorities. So it needs to be a priority. That's the major thing. If ESG is not a priority, then you miss it because you come to work every day to do so many things. So within these so many things, let it be ESG focused. Let the thoughts, let the decision making, let the information flow from an ESG conscious mind. That will actually drive ESG in our organizations. If we don't have that consciousness, we will be doing our daily activities and will not be ESG compliant. So organizations can position themselves for long-term success by integrating ESG into corporate strategy, investing in innovation, developing sustainable products, improving operational efficiency, strengthening stakeholders' engagement, pursuing green financing, building resilient supply chain and investing in employee capacity. A case study is here too. A food processing company faces rising energy costs and increases consumer demand for sustainable products and pressures from investors to improve ESG performance. The investors are pressuring them to improve ESG performance. Strategic action, they decided to install solar energy system, reduce water consumption through recycling technologies, source raw materials from certified sustainable suppliers, introduce environmental friendly packaging. So packaging too can be environmental friendly, and this actually now helps them polish their annual ESG report. The second case study here is lower operational costs, increased investors' confidence. So in this case, these people paid attention to it. So the case study illustrates how sustainability can become a catalyst for growth rather than a compliance obligation. So if you do ESG right, I tell you, your profit too will actually increase, and then we'll be able to meet both targets at both ends. So in conclusion, sustainable finance has become a strategic driver of long-term value creation by integrating environment, social, and governance. So I can beat my chest to say, if you follow ESG back to back, if your profit was 1 billion this year, all things being equal, in the same next year, you follow ESG framework, your profit should shoot up because you actually, maybe your employees now run a shift. So everybody is healthy, everybody is working, production is more. So if you look at it holistically, you'll be able to say, yes, I want to implement ESG in my company from today. So that you're not just looking at the money, the finance part of your books, but the environment, the social and the governance part of your organization. Green investment supported by robust ESG frameworks enables organizations to manage risks, strengthen stakeholders' confidence, and attract responsible investment. As emerging trends come up, artificial intelligence, fintech, circular economic models, and climate innovation reshape global markets. Organizations that embrace sustainability innovation will be better positioned, like I mentioned, to unlock new growth opportunities because investors will be interested in what you're doing. And ESG makes you speak when you're having an investor meeting. They're interested, oh, you're doing this, or you have solar panel, or you put pipes. They're always so excited, foreign investors, to actually now say they want to invest in your business. And it builds resilience and sustains long-term competitiveness in your organization. I hope you've been able to learn 5 or 10 or 50 things from my presentation. Thank you very much. Over to you, ICAN. I believe I'm timely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kindly appreciate Yvonne Afolabi. I'm sure we have learned so much from her this afternoon. Yeah, we appreciate your contribution. So we'll go to the question and answer now. Thank you for the emojis. Thank you for the appreciation. We appreciate every one of you. Yeah, there's been a response like this from one of the participants, but I'll still like our facilitators to react to this question. We have this from an anonymous attendee that there is a recent wave about sustainability being projected as an accounting profession. How viable is this, and is that line between the practice of sustainability reporting. I'll ask Adeyewande to react to this briefly to complement the response that we already have on the chat.
All right, thank you, Madam, for that question. And I appreciate the interest of the participant that has asked that question. But I'll prefer not to respond to this question at this time. Thank you.
Madam Yvonne, can you please react to the second question from Cosmos Ilegbam? And it says that is ESG reporting and green finance applicable to SME per standard requirements? Please, you get that question? Yvonne Afolabi, please. Are you still with us? Okay, we have a participant who would like to ask a question, which Elizabeth Ubabuko. Kindly unmute and ask your question. Elizabeth Ubabuko.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Thank you so much for all I've learned today. I really have learned so much. But I wanted to ask the last speaker, sorry, I don't know her name now. She talked about the environment, asking your environment, the people in your environment for their medical reports and everything, and then comparing it maybe with the last year or something. So I'm just wondering, what if they have medical issues that are not related to the environment? Does that really work? Do you get my question?
Yes, I will ask the facilitator to respond now. I hope you
Okay.
also got it. Yvonne Afolabi, please. Are you with us? Did you get the question from Elizabeth Ubabuko? Would Madam Yewande want to react to the question, please?
Okay, thank you very much. The question was not quite clear. If you could go again.
Okay. Oh, the
Yes.
last speaker, Mrs. Yvonne, she said
Yes.
when you were talking about the S of the ESG, that you
Yes.
kind of asked your environment, people in your environment for their medical reports. You're trying to see whether their medical status is better than maybe the last year or something. You ask them for their
Okay.
medical reports. So I'm now
Okay.
asking, what if they have medical issues that are not related to the environment? How then do you use that to measure whether they are getting better or worse?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I think this relates to the general principle of research, right? When we are conducting any research at all and we want to determine the impact of a situation on a subject, typically it's important that we get the baseline situation first, understand the position prior to the situation before we then implement or we start taking actions that we expect impact the subject. And then at the time of a certain time frame, we then go back and reassess. And this also takes into cognizance every other aspect of the environment that may have contributed to that situation. You may want to look at the behavior of the person. For instance, if you are talking about emissions and maybe the impact on respiratory health, you may also want to take away the fact that maybe the person doesn't smoke, the person doesn't have other factors that or even genetic factors, that have contributed to that situation. So it's important that a very robust research is done. When we measure impact, there's something we call attribution, there's something we call death rate. All of this is considering other factors that may have contributed to that situation, and of course, backed with evidence. When that is there, be able to really capture the impact of our own operations or activities or our initiative on those subjects.
Okay.
I hope that answers the
Understand
question.
what you're saying. Thank you so much. And I have another question too. I wanted to ask, in the light of Nigeria situation, whereby
Okay.
a lot of people, it's a few people that uses solar, a lot of people still uses generator that emits carbon.
Okay.
I wanted to say, in this climate change that they're talking about, that the whole world is talking about, if you compare Nigeria with other African countries that their power is stable, is the climate change worse in Nigeria compared to theirs, to show that okay, it's really working, that this climate change thing is really a reality? Can we really say Nigerian climate is worse than the other African countries that have stable electricity?
Okay. Very tricky question.
Because sometimes I used to think that this climate change, is it really true? That's that's how I
Okay.
feel.
Okay. First, I'll say climate change is true, because all of these discussions came up as a result of assessments, of different situations with a baseline, which was the pre-industrial age. The pre-industrial, the emissions, the composition as at the pre-industrial age was compared, to when industrialization came to take, and it was clear that it is as a result of human activities, that has resulted in, all of these emissions, and of course, the release into the atmosphere and the resultant change that we have in our climate. That being said, most of the studies I've come across have reported Africa collectively in terms of impact or in terms of emissions, and the common research is that Africa is responsible for only 3 to 4% of those global emissions. But in terms of comparison with other African countries, I have not personally conducted that research. But I'll say that it's a combination of so many things, and of which use of fossil fuel generator is one component out of the several other activities that we carry out that results in emissions. So I would say, and that is why we refer to something as decarbonization strategy. What the decarbonization strategy is, it helps you look at the situation as an entity, as a country, to say that what is my current emission profile? What are my hotspots? As in, where is the emissions, most of the emissions coming from, and how do I then leverage initiatives, to that can plug into those hotspots and reduce the emissions coming from those hotspot areas. So it's a combination of so many factors. It's not in isolation like you have described, But what is
Mm.
important is that we understand our baseline, we develop a strategy, and then we work towards it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I have a better
You're welcome.
understanding. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. There's a question on integration of data into financial reporting and risk management. I don't know if you want to give a brief recap on that.
Okay. I'm trying to find that. Okay, can you please read out the question? I'm trying to
How,
look at the question.
from Stephen Olaniyan, how is
Okay.
ESG data integrated into financial reporting and risk management?
Okay, let me respond to risk management first. I typically say that enterprise risk management is not yet enterprise wide when you don't consider environmental, social, and governance risk, within those risks. So often organizations leverage the existing framework that they have for all those other enterprise risk or financial risks that they have, the framework that helps you to identify, to assess the extent, to prioritize, to put mitigants or adaptations in place, or to treat the risk or as the case may be. So those frameworks as well, they are typically very useful in also managing environmental and social risk within the business. So it's then you looking at it collectively. So in your risk register, for instance, you also have environmental and social risk. In your reporting, I'm not aware of any organization that does reporting to board, for instance, where they don't have a line item or even hours dedicated to risk. So reporting it collectively, and where some risks are high, like any typical high risk that we have within our portfolio, highlighting it and reacting to it appropriately. Also, in terms of measuring the impact, in terms of putting figures to it, some organizations will tell you that any risk that is going to cost me $100,000 to $1 million, is categorized as high risk. So, those same pattern as well. Assessing their likelihood and probability, all of those frameworks that we leverage for our enterprise risk management are very useful for environmental and social risk management as well. But then it then also then requires specialists to understand the depths of the risk. It then means that the ENS risk specialists and the enterprise risk management specialists have to work hand in hand, because I understand the risk better and I'm able to assess the impact and the likelihood more, than somebody who is not a professional in that space. And in terms of financials as well, in assessing financial impact of environmental and social risks, we typically do this together with our accounting advisory team, where we come from the angle of the knowledge of the risk, and then they come from the angle of how those risks impact the financial statement line items, and we are able to, come up with the model that is suitable for the organization. So I am not a financial expert, but what we do is to quantify, the likely extent that it will impact. So if, for instance, a flood happens, and I'm going to lose some assets to it, what's the value of those assets that I may likely lose to it, and how does it impact my financials? And of course, in determining the value of those assets as well, I also want to consider their lifespan. I want to consider
Okay. Hello? Sorry, Wanda, we lost you for some moments. Your network, I guess, froze. We lost your comment, your last comment. Ivana Folabi, please confirm if you can hear me so that you can help us with the next question. I think Viwande has a challenge with her network. Hello, Yvonne. Sincere apologies. I think our facilitators having challenge with the network. So it's 2 o'clock, and I think we've had a very fulfilling webinar today, and I'll be calling on Dr. Princewill Okemini to help appreciate our facilitators and give the closing remark. Then for the attendance, for the YouTube, there's a link there that you will complete for us to capture your attendance. While those on Zoom, your attendance is automatically recorded as you register for the program through the Zoom link. Dr. Kemini, you have the floor, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. We can hear you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much The topic was well taught, all the concepts understood. At this very point in time, I was given the privilege to take the closing remark. That makes wasting much of your time. Distinguished guests, speakers, and business leaders, as we wrap up today's webinar on empowering sustainable growth, ESG reporting and green finance for Nigerian businesses, I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone who contributed immensely to making this event a resounding success. Today, we explore how environmental, social, and governance principles are no longer optional buzzwords, but essential tools for resilience and long-term value creation. We have learned that unlocking green finance from green bond to sustainable lending requires us to move from conventional profit-only metrics to comprehensive sustainable tracking. As Nigerian businesses, the transition to a low-carbon economy presents immense investment and growth opportunities, but it demands transparency, accountability, and the adoption of standardized framework like the IFRS S1 and S2. Every one of us, including institutions, have a role to play in all of this. I therefore encourage you all to take the insights, best practices, and connections you have gathered today and integrate them into your corporate strategies. Let us lead the charge in building more sustainable, equitable, and profitable economic future for Nigerians. Thank you for your active participation, and I wish you all the best as you go to lead the change that we all desire. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, DLTS, our Deputy Registrar of Technical Service, who has been with us from the beginning of the program to the end. Thank you to all the faculty members. Thank you, everyone. For those who are raising their hands, I want to take it that I want to appreciate our facilitators. So we appreciate you all, and then we want you to visit the Institute website where you can access our upcoming training programs. And then we also dropped a link for your feedback. So please just take just a few minutes, 2-3 minutes, and help us to complete the feedback form. The link is on the chat box and both on the Zoom and YouTube. Just take a few minutes to complete it so that we can improve on service delivery to you. So we appreciate you all, and I will look forward to seeing you in our other programs. It's a free webinar, and the video is available on ICAN YouTube channel. So feel free to visit our YouTube channel for a recap of this training and every other free training. Thank you so very much. God bless you all and have a beautiful day.